Hello, all heroes, and welcome back to Invincible Guarding the Globe. And today we are going to be going over the kit for the newest character to be added to the game and the greatest of all time, One Agent Donald. He has finally been added, has been long desired and long anticipated, and now here he is in all of his glory. I absolutely love the design they went with like the arm guns and stuff. That is ridiculously cool. But before we get into Donald, if you are enjoying this content and want to see more, go down below the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support me further, become a member as well. Would help me out a lot. Now, Donald, the man himself, is coming to us as the first new GDA Attacker we've had since the beginning of the game, if I'm not mistaken, because we've always had like Duplicate and Explode as the rares, and then Shrinking Ray and Bulletproof as the elites. But we have not actually had any new attackers for GDA until now. So there's more than a little bit writing on this for Donald, because it's not up to an aggressive debate whether or not the GDA faction is the worst faction in the game. It kind of is. So let's see if he changes that. Like I said, he is a GDA character. He is a range character. And for his tags, he has Cecil Secrets, Armed, and Grounded. You will notice, first of all, that he does not have a human tag, which means that Anissa is not going to one-tap this guy. I love my Anissa as much as the next guy, but it's easy to like a nuke when you're the one using the nuke. The fact that every single character feels almost worse if they have the human tag is probably not indicative of a healthy meta, but I digress. He is not human, he is mostly machine, so he gets away with that. Now, if we take a look at his skills, they are interesting to say the least. First of all, his main ability, Ferguson's Fireworks. Donald fires 6 missiles at random targets. Each explosion deals 30% damage to nearby enemies with a cooldown of 17 seconds. Now, you'll notice here, these missiles hit like wet noodles. Well, here's the thing. First of all, if you get up to level 3, they also get a crit damage buff. And if you get all the way up to level 10, they scale up actually surprisingly aggressively. At level 10, they are 120% damage per missile and benefiting from a 50% critical damage boost. So at level 1, they hit like a wet noodle. At level 10, they hit like a wet noodle that's bathed in gunpowder. It's gonna hurt, especially if an enemy eats more than one of those missiles. So interesting diversity there, where it starts out not too impressive but scales up aggressively. Spoiler alert, that's going to be a trend for this guy. Next, we have Contingency Protocol. When fighting alongside a leader, Donald increases his team's defense by 6%. Now, I have never been particularly fond of defense buffs, but it was brought to my attention over stream that Cecil actually does scale on defense pretty regularly. His main ability, Cecil's Hammer, does scale on defense, and I think he does have some other stuff in there as well. I would have to remind myself. So at least in the context of that, and in the context of like the Immortal is important, okay, it has a purpose. I don't like it per se, but it does have a purpose. Now, if we take him to level 5, he gets a critical damage boost each time a Cecil Secret ally is defeated, up to 10 stacks. And if you go all the way up to level 10, his team's defense is increased by 18%, which is actually a chunky percentage, all things considered. That's actually a noteworthy amount of bulk. And then he gains 15% critical damage each time a Cecil Secret ally is defeated, up to 10 stacks. So basically the idea here is that you will run him with Cecil. Cecil summons a Reaniman that has a Cecil Secrets tag whenever an ally dies. And when that Reaniman inevitably dies, because he is just a Reaniman, he's pretty frail, his death will boost Donald in turn. Or ironically, if you had Conquest or Darkwing 2, that would work as well. But the point is, it's really supposed to pair with the Reanimen that are pretty squishy that Cecil is summoning, kind of actually giving them a purpose. And I will say too, Donald surprisingly attacks a lot. His ranged abilities are very fast. So I don't talk about normal attacks a lot in these character overviews, but Donald's is particularly snappy. So that crit damage is going to add up in a hurry. And then we have fail, safe, burnout. After each fire burst, basically being his normal attacks, Donald gains 1% crit chance boost up to 100%. If he is stunned, he loses 100% of the accumulated critical chance up to a minimum of 0%. Additionally, every 6 fire bursts, Donald dashes away from his target and gains a 10% critical damage boost for 3 seconds. Now, so you've seen the past couple abilities have been very crit damage focused. Well, this is how he increases his crit chance. Now, I will say this. And like I said with the other two, I'm not terribly impressed at level 1. But here's the situation. If we go all the way up to, let's see, level 5, if he gets stunned, yes, he loses that crit chance, but he also becomes immune to all damage for 4 seconds. Yes, this dude has an immunity shield, and a pretty easy one at that. So even if he does get stunned, because there's very rarely a stun that's any more than 3 seconds, the enemy will not be able to capitalize on it. Yes, they get a stun, but unless Conquest shatters that shield, he's just going to sit there and wake back up, and they will not, and the enemy will not have done anything to him. If anything, it's actually a bad thing for the enemy to stun him now, because now the enemy can waste shots on an immunity shield. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. And then if you take it all the way up to level 10, not only does that immunity shield go up to 4.5, but every fire burst, Donald gains 2.5% critical chance, which is over double the initial 1%, meaning he will charge it up much, much faster. And then if he is stunned, he will only lose 60% of the accumulated crit chance. And also the dash, at some point, actually at level 10, the dash he needs gets reduced to 5 fire bursts. So he gets that additional 20% crit damage for several seconds. Like I said, nothing crazy at level 1, absolutely cracked at level 10. This dude has given me such a hard time to decide whether I think he is good or bad, because, man, his abilities scale. His abilities scale. And finally, we have It's Been an Honor, Sir. Upon death, Donald self-destructs, triggering an explosion that deals 160% damage to all enemies as a guaranteed critical strike. Now, guaranteed crit and crit damage buffs notwithstanding, I will say I don't think 160% damage is a whole lot in and of itself. However, if you take him up to, let's see here, level 7, each impacted enemy has a chance of losing their shield, which, if I'm not mistaken, means that the shield will not protect them from this strike. And then at level 10, it's a 300% damage to all enemies as a guaranteed critical strike. That hurts. That hurts a lot. That is a chunky strike, to say the least. So, here's the thing with Donald. Other characters, like the recently released General Krieg, are amazing out the box. They are already ready to go, and the upgrades make them even better. The weird bit with Donald is that I do not like his level 1 abilities. But I love his level 10 abilities. Like, okay. His abilities scale dramatically. Like, this is probably the most dramatic scaling I have seen in recent memory. Even Krieg, as good as he is, I don't feel like he scaled up quite as much as Donald did. He goes from level 1 to level 10, his abilities go crazy. Now, briefly, we'll talk about his recommended artifacts. I gotta be honest, I actually debate whether or not Cloaking Device would work for him. Rarely is there a day that a Cloaking Device does not work on an attacker, and of course it would work just fine because it's got attack and crit, 2 things he needs. But I will say, given the nature of his self-destruct, you almost kind of do want Donald to be attacked at some point or another. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. It's just the fact that he does have a self-destruct means that even in death, he can do a massive strike. In fact, in death, he arguably does his strongest ability, which can literally just wipe the enemy on a good day, especially considering it is a guaranteed crit, regardless of how necessary that is or not. So honestly, you could save the cloaking device for somebody else, like your other attacker on your team. Alternatively, Black's an anti-aging bracelet is an old reliable. It is simple, but dang it, it works. It will speed up how fast his missiles are launched by a second or two, and it has crit chance as well. It does not have the attack of the cloaking device, but it still has a noteworthy amount of crit, which he can absolutely use. Of course, there are some other abilities like Canslot whenever you do get him powered up. I mean, let's be real here. Canslot can work on anybody. But ironically, here's the funny thing with this. If you play it right, and I do emphasize play it right, he could get the boost from getting to one HP. He gets the immunity shield. Well, I don't know. Let me rephrase that. His attack increase would also end from the immunity shield, so I guess the self-destruct wouldn't work with that attack boost unless Conquest cracks his shield early, and then he would get the attack increase on his self-destruct, which is almost like a cheeky little Conquest bait. That's a niche strategy, and honestly, rare is the day that Canslot would not be good on just about anybody. But if I were to name three artifacts that would work great for him, cloaking device, albeit not necessary, anti-aging bracelet, or Canslot. I feel like I should just say that Canslot works on everybody and call it a day. However, I will also say, he is in a unique position where the body enhancement is particularly good. Because the body enhancement works for original Guardians of the Globe or Guardians of the Globe in your team. More often than not, you are probably going to have at least the Immortal in your team. If we check out that tag, boop boop, you will have at least the Immortal in your team for sure. And while you're at it, you might also have Red Rush. Red Rush is a very good character. Or if you're leaning more into the GDA side of things, you could have Robot or Shapesmith, both of whom are extremely potent supports that can work very well with Cecil. So honestly, like I said, I always list like anti-aging bracelet or cloaking device as a general. But honestly, if you're planning his team correctly, the body enhancement is probably the best one to use. And then I gotta give, of course, an extremely important mention to the fact that he basically needs Cecil on the team. Not only does Cecil's the hammer scale off of his defense. What else does he have here? Does this he gets some defense increase for GDA members, which is not horrible because again it increases his hammer. He gets healing from his subterfuge ability, and that healing does scale on his defense, which I think is why a lot of people were defending Donald's defense boosts. It's not so much for the team as it is for Cecil, because Cecil's healing does scale on his defense, and he actually increases their crit chance too, which also works with Donald. And then, of course, the Reaniman here on his last ability. Whenever a Reaniman would die, it would give Donald more crit damage. Now, ironically, also, if you wanted to be a little cheeky, he does work with Conquest, which is more than a little amusing. Not gonna lie. He does work with Conquest because Conquest is a Cecil's secret character. And Conquest is also a tank who increases his attack based on his defense. So if Donald is increasing Conquest defense because there's a leader on the team in the form of Cecil or some other leader, Conquest is also benefiting from that leader and getting even more attack because his defense was higher. It's an ironic synergy, to say the least, to say that Donald, the goodest boy in the show, works with arguably the most vicious villain we have seen in Invincible to date. It's an amusing concept nonetheless, but one that does technically work. Now, what's Donald's purpose? Do I think he is going to shake up the meta in Arena? No. But he doesn't have to, because here's what he does do well. GDA Ops. I am very guilty of forgetting that GDA Ops exists, if I'm being totally honest, and just thinking in terms of like Arena and more recently Alliance Warfare. However, you tend to see a lot of Reanimen in GDA Ops when you're running Cecil, because it's a very long fight. It's hours and hours long, and your characters will inevitably die sooner or later, which means Reanimen will be summoned inevitably sooner or later, and they will croak, meaning that you will get crit damage on Donald. Also, keeping in mind, especially once you get it leveled up, his self-destruct nuke is basically a wave. That's just a straight-up wave wipe. If you've got a wave that's being a little stubborn, Donald might just straight up save you. He might actually push your progress, and in GDA Op, farther than you normally would without him, because no matter what, every time he dies, he is going to nuke the enemy. No matter what. There's something to be said for that, actually. There is something to be said for that, because even if he is getting just obliterated, every time he's getting obliterated, that's an AoE he's unleashing upon the whole enemy side of the field. That's not bad, actually. That's not bad, and especially post-buff, Cecil is very good nowadays. So, he is not an arena character. I mean, he could work just fine in, like, restricted arenas. He's not an arena character. But that's not what he's here for. He is here to clear waves. GDA Ops. I think he would go absolutely crazy in GDA Ops. The problem is he requires extreme investment. At level 1, his skills are unimpressive in my opinion, but at level 10, they go absolutely hog wild. So take that how you will. Honestly, I wish I could comfortably give breakpoints, but his scaling is just so good that if you're building Donald, just take his skills up to level 10. You've already come that far, getting him up to Omni Plus anyway. If you're building Donald and you're a massive Donald fan, get his skills up to level 10, plop him in some GDA Ops alongside of Cecil, and watch him work. Because I think he will do very well. And to be fair, he is still arguably the best attacker GDA has seen. Bulletproof is a contender because he did receive some noteworthy buffs. So Bulletproof is admittedly putting up a fight nowadays, and I did get my cheeks absolutely clapped by a Bulletproof in Alliance Warfare one time. So I'll give him a tentative shot at the #1 slot there, but Donald is no doubt breathing some much needed life into the GDA faction. But we will leave it at that. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, how good you think Donald is. If you are enjoying my content, like I said before, go down below and subscribe to the channel and become a member if you want to support me further. And with that, we shall see you next time. Have a good one.